Hello and welcome back to Fallout 76. Once again, I'm at the Purveyor, ready for some pain. This is a character that I need to delete to make room for another one, which means I will be spending all of the legendary scrip. So as you can see, this character has 3,105, and my intention is to spend all of it because you can't take it with you. And because it is the mystery pick weekend, I decided I'm gonna do that instead of going for ranged weapons. For those that don't know, the mystery pick means you're just gonna get a 3-star item. It could be a ranged weapon, a melee weapon, a piece of regular armor, or a piece of power armor. The only thing you know for sure is that it will be 3 stars. And we can be reasonably certain that whatever we get is going to be something we really don't want. That'll give us around 50 items, which means this could take a while, so let's just get right to it. First up, we've got a Medic's harpoon gun with limb damage and AP cost. Harpoon guns, I've tried them, don't really love them. Limb damage, yeah, I guess it's okay if you're looking to cripple things. AP cost, but yeah, medics for something like this, I'm really not interested. Next up, we've got a Ghoul Slayer's Raider Power Left Leg with, let's see, less disease chance and food, drink, and chem weight reduction. Okay, well, chem weight reduction, that could be useful. Especially with power armor because you're not going to be able to wear a backpack. And Raider, like, I don't really worry about the type of armor. All power armor is going to be pretty strong. So as far as that goes, it's perfectly usable. But those other 2 stars really aren't that useful. So this is going to go. Next up, we've got a Aristocrat's Heavy Raider right leg, and the other stars are not showing. We get +1 strength and electrified, which should mean that melee attackers have a chance to receive electrical damage. Aristocrats on something like this, I think that's an extra 10. Or no, up to 20. It just says right there, extra 20. But it is Raider, which isn't, yeah, this isn't the greatest piece. So yeah, this is not going to be something that probably anyone's going to want. Next up, we've got a cloaking, heavy metal left arm. Cloaking is probably my least favorite primary effect. Being hit in melee generates a stealth field. I just think that once they're close enough to hit you, going invisible really isn't all that useful. +1 perception. I generally don't love specials on armor, so that's, unless it's +1 strength and I'm a melee character. Other than that, I don't really want that. Food, drink, and chem weight, that could be useful, but overall, this is not a piece that is any good, I don't think. Next up, we've got Aristocrats Ultra Sight. Okay, so it looks like anything I get Aristocrats today, it's just not going to show the other stars, which is fine. So it's Aristocrat's Ultra Sight left arm. Okay, so I'm of the opinion that with power armor, you do not need anything that gives you extra resistance. Reduction is fine, extra resistance I don't think is useful at all because power armor is so strong already. So Aristocrat's not all that useful. +1 luck, I don't think that's great either. I mean, you're probably not going to be doing VATS. Maybe you are. Maybe you're doing VATS crits in a power armor character, but generally you're probably not. So I'm not really that interested in extra luck. And dissipating. Dissipating. Okay, I had to double check. I don't know necessarily what the things are, what the names are. So dissipating is radiation recovery. Well, that's a reasonable effect. My full health characters generally have what rads, so dissipating isn't really going to do all that good, but that could be a useful effect. But overall, this is not that exciting of a piece. Generally, I like Aristocrats, but if it's going to not tell me all the stars and I'm going to have to go hunting for them, I'm going to hope I don't get a lot of Aristocrat stuff today. And we got a troubleshooter submachine gun with critical damage and 90% reduced weight. Well, I do like critical damage. Don't really care for reduced weight. These have a pretty, I mean, for an automatic weapon, their AP cost I think is a little higher. So I definitely want reduced AP for that 3rd star. And enemy specific stuff isn't interesting to me at all. At least it's not interesting to me on weapons. On armor, I don't mind it. I don't mind a mix and match set where we get enemy specific damage reductions, but on weapons, I don't really want it. Next up, we've got a bolstering leather left leg, hunger and thirst grow slower, and junk weight items are reduced. Let's see here. Hunger and thirst, food is very plentiful. I don't think that's a very useful star at all. Bolstering, I actually don't care for bolstering. I think if you are and the reason I don't care for it is if you're going to go low health, like the biggest benefit of being a low health character is unyielding. That unyielding effect is so strong that I just wouldn't go bolstering. If I'm going to go low health, it's going to be unyielding all the way. So for me, bolstering really doesn't have a use case for anything that I would do. So that makes this piece really something that I wouldn't use. Next up, we've got Troubleshooter's War Drum with limb damage and +1 strength. War Drum, don't think it's that great of a weapon. +1 strength, that's a good effect on a melee weapon. That's about the only time I'm going to want a special on a weapon. Limb damage, I'm not really targeting limbs with melee weapons, so don't really care for that. Troubleshooters, again, enemy specific on a weapon, not interested in that, so I'm not interested in this at all. Next up, we've got a Autostim Botsmith chest piece with +1 luck and the ability to breathe underwater. Well, there is only one section of this game, really, where breathing underwater actually comes in handy. Other than that, it's not, it's not really something that's useful in this particular game. +1 luck, if you're a critical build, extra luck, I guess could be useful. I'd rather have another effect though. Auto stim, that's fine. You know, automatically revive you every, once every 60 seconds when your health goes below 25%. That could be useful, keeping you alive, but overall this is not really a combination of effects that interests me. Next up, we've got a Ghoul Slayer's combat rifle with critical damage and +1 perception. I do like critical damage. And that's kind of the end of it. I don't really need extra damage against ghouls, and specials on guns is not something I ever want. Next up, we've got a Berserker's combat knife with limb damage and agility. Berserkers, that's a good effect if you're playing that way. Plus, what this character actually is because I put all of my armor and weapons in the script machine. So this character is currently... I have a vault suit on. I wonder why it's not 50%. Yeah, I have a vault suit on. That's why it's 45. Limb damage, don't really want that on a melee weapon, and I don't want agility on a melee weapon. Next up, we've got a Chameleon T45 torso with +1 perception and extra effectiveness of Stimpaks, Radaway, and Radix. I know people do sneak in power armor. I don't, so for me, I never want Chameleon. It's like, to me, that's having no first star. Basically, that's no star at all because I don't sneak in power armor. +1 perception, again, I don't want specials on... as a second star power armor, I'd rather have poison resistance, AP regen, fire resistance, something like that. And 5% effectiveness of Stimpaks and Radaway, that's just such a tiny number. I'm not interested in that at all. Next up, we've got a 2-shot single action revolver with bash damage and agility. Well, there's Gunther's Big Iron, which is 2-shot and is faster fire rate and faster reload. So if you want a 2-shot single action revolver, go that way. Otherwise, just don't bother. Next up, we've got an Assassin's Death Tambo with melee, melee damage reflection while blocking, and bonus VATS critical charge. Okay, well, again, enemy-specific damage, don't want that. And I never block in this game, so that's not really a useful effect. And that 3rd star, maybe, but the first 2 suck, so we are moving on. Next up, we've got a Hunter's Baseball Bat with replenish AP with each kill and weapon breaks slower. We are just not getting really good combination of effects yet, but we have a long way to go. Hunter's extra damage against animals, that's enemy specific. I don't want it. Replenish AP with each kill, not really something I want on a melee weapon. And weapon breaks slower, this isn't gonna break terribly quickly, so yeah, I don't really want this at all. Next, we've got a Furious Pipe Pistol, replenish AP on each kill, and +1 perception. Furious is a sort of okay effect. If you're going to use that as an automatic, that makes it okay. If you're doing semi-automatic, I wouldn't bother, but as an automatic, that would be okay. Replenish AP with each kill is okay. That could keep you in VATS a little bit longer, and +1 perception, it'll add to your accuracy, but overall, this is really not that great. Next up, we've got a Vanguard's Botsmith Left Arm, +1 perception, and chance to reduce damage while not moving. Okay, Vanguards, I don't generally like Vanguards that much because once you start taking damage, then your resistance starts going away, and that's really when you need it the most. So I'd rather have something like Overeater, something that reduces incoming damage, rather than something that, could go away when you need it the most, but it's an okay effect. +1 perception, don't really want that on my armor. And that 3rd star, I guess if you're standing still, not doing anything, I just don't play that way. I'm just never standing still and not doing anything. So that 3rd star really is never going to be helpful for the way that I play. So this is overall not a piece I'm going to keep. Next up, we've got a Troubleshooter's T45 Left Arm with fire resistance and brakes slower. Okay, this is actually okay. So if I'm going to do a mix and match set with various pieces that give me reduction from different enemies like Troubleshooters, Mutant Slayers, I don't mind that. That's how I want to build my power armor set. Fire resistance, I also like that as well. I don't tend to run Funky Duds or Sizzling Style. I tend to use my legendary perks for other things. Breaks slower, power armor breaks really slowly, so I don't think that 3rd star is really useful, but the first 2 pieces are actually kind of interesting. All right, next on our list is a Suppressor's Pickaxe with +50% melee damage reflection while blocking and reduced AP cost. I've actually been using VATS quite a bit with melee weapons because of hack and slash, so that 3rd star is a good one. Suppressors, I think, is a useless effect, and I never block, so that 2nd star is useless as well. So overall, this is a throwaway. Next up, we've got a Mutant's Death Tambo with weapon speed and +1 endurance. Well, that's the first time we've seen weapon speed, so that is my preferred 2nd star melee weapons, unless it's one of the auto ones, like the auto axe or chainsaw. Then I want power attack damage, but everything else I want weapon speed. So I like that. Mutants, maybe this can give you extra damage, 25% for being mutated, so that's a good effect as well. +1 endurance, really not do anything for us, but this is okay. Next, we've got a Troubleshooter's Auto Grenade Launcher with replenish AP with each kill and damage resist while aiming. You know, with a launcher weapon, with an explosive weapon like this, if it's not two-shot, I don't want it. It's not two-shot, so I don't want this. Next up, we've got a Mutant's Raider Power Right Arm, plus a AP regen, and chance to deal cryo damage to melee attackers. Okay, so extra damage resistance on power armor, not interested in that. AP regen, that's a good effect. And extra damage against melee attackers, that's actually okay. If you get a full set with those kind of effects, pretty much you're always lighting up the enemies that are hitting you. So overall, though, this is probably not something I'm interested in. Next, we've got a cloaking T45 left leg with plus 25 cryo resistance and food drink chem weight reduction by 20%. Again, with power armor, weight reduction on food could be good because you aren't able to do that with the backpack. Cryo resistance, I don't think is really useful in this game since it doesn't stop you from being frozen, and just cryo damage isn't a big thing. So I don't think that's that useful. And cloaking, I think, is probably the worst effect. So overall, we don't want this. Next, we've got a Mutant Sturdy Combat Armor chest piece with poison resistance and food, drink, and chem weight reduction. Okay, so Mutants extra damage resistance. I don't generally love that all that much, although your mutations aren't going to go away, and you don't have to constantly feed them like you do with Overeaters, so Mutants is a kind of a permanent buff. So that's actually okay. It's not a ton. I mean, it's only plus 10, but it's something. So, I mean, that's not terrible. Poison resistance, I actually really like that. I try to run armor. When I have an armor set, I try to have 2 or 3 pieces that have that, so I like that. Food, drink, chem weight reduction, that can actually get rid of 2 perk cards, right? You can get rid of Through Hiker and Traveling Pharmacy if you have enough of those, armor pieces that have that on it. So that actually could be good. Next up, we've got a Hunter's Ultrasight Torso. Less damage from animals. That could be something that, you know, if you're doing a mix and match piece, that could be something, although animals aren't necessarily the most dangerous creatures, but still, it could be good, part of a mix and match set. Reduced disease chance. I'm not convinced that actually does anything, so it's not something I ever want. Junk weight reduction. That's not, I mean, we have survival tents. Well, if you have Fallout First, you do. So junk weight isn't something you necessarily carry all the time, so I'm not really looking for that on armor either. Next up, we've got a Mutant's Machete with power attack damage and damage while blocking. Minus 15% damage while blocking, rather. I never block, so that 3rd star is not going to help us at all. 40% power attack damage. I mean, power attacks are good and strong. I just don't tend to use them, so for me, that's not useful. And Mutants, you know, extra damage, as long as you're mutated, which I always am pretty much. So that 1st star is okay. The rest of it, not so much. Next up, we've got Exterminator Shish Kebab with power attack damage, plus 1 agility. Power attack damage, I just rather have swing speed. Plus 1 agility, that's not the special I'm looking for in a melee weapons. It's either plus 1 strength or give me something else. Don't give me another special. And extra damage against bugs, not interested. Next, we've got a Cloaking Raider Power Torso. You know what? I don't like cloaking. It's not something I want, especially on power armor, but just in general, I just think cloaking is really useless. Hunger and thirst, growing slower, food is plentiful. That's useless as well. Junk weight, yeah, this is not a good piece. Next, we've got Unyielding Forest Scout left arm with reduced disease chance and harder to detect while sneaking. Okay, so 2 out of 3. So Unyielding, that's a really good effect. A lot of people like that. If you play low health, that's, to me, if you play with low health, that is what you should always choose in regular armor. I don't think you should choose anything else. Disease chance, I don't think that actually, I mean, I don't have any way to know if that's actually working. So for me, that's not a star that I ever want. But harder to detect while sneaking, that's a really good star as well. You don't want multiple pieces that have that because that effect isn't going to stack. It's only going to work on like 1 piece. So, but still, this is a really good piece, except for that 2nd star kind of makes it, yeah, this is a good starter unyielding piece is what it is. Next, we've got Overeater's Forest Scout left leg with hunger and thirst growing slower and break slower. Break slower, that's actually a good effect, especially if you play melee. Well, and legs actually break quicker than other pieces of armor for some reason, so break slower is actually not a bad 3rd star on armor. Overeater's really good 1st star. Hunger and thirst growing slower, I don't think that's useful at all just because there's so much food everywhere, which is kind of weird. I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but that's how it is, so this is just a so-so piece. Next, we've got a Mutant's Wood left arm with plus 1 intelligence and chance to deal fire damage, which I think is a funny effect coming from wood. Mutants, little bit of extra damage resistance, plus 10. It's not a lot, but wood isn't really all that strong, so plus 10 damage and energy resistance is actually an okay thing. It's not like your mutations are gonna just magically go away. So that's good. Plus 1 intelligence, unless you're leveling. Don't really care for that. That 3rd star, it's okay. It's not really my first choice, but I care more about the 1st and 2nd stars when it comes to regular armor. Next up, we've got a 2-shot hunting rifle with VATS hit chance and movement speed while aiming. This is actually pretty good. 2-shot is not something I generally like because it does hurt your accuracy, but plus 50% hit chance will actually more than make up for that. So you're going to get a little bit of extra damage. I think two-shot only gives like 25% more damage, so it's not a ton. It's not a top tier effect, I don't think, unless you have explosive as the second star. But two-shot with VATS hit chance, actually pretty decent. Third star is not useful at all, but this is actually okay. Next up, we've got Troubleshooter's Pickaxe with replenish AP with each kill and weapon break slower, enemy specific, and yeah, other effects I'm just not really looking for on a melee weapon. So let's just move on. Next up, we've got a bolstering wood right arm with cryo resist and damage, less damage while blocking. Okay, I don't block. Cryo resistance is useless, and if you're low health, you should be unyielding, so this is just a throwaway. So far, we haven't gotten anything really interesting, but I didn't really expect anything interesting, so on we go. We've got a Zealot's Union Torso with, let's see, damage, Zealot's +1 endurance, food, drink, and chem weight reduction. Okay, well this is Union, so it's not really gonna be useful because I'm deleting this character. Union armor's not tradable, so this can't go anywhere but back in the script machine. Food, drink, and chem weight is okay. Endurance you don't really need, this is power armor. And less damage from Scorch, that's actually good because they are everywhere. But this is not a piece that I could transfer to any other character, so it's just gonna go back in the machine. Next up, we've got a Vanguard's Raider Power right arm with +1 intelligence and let's see, damage reduction while not moving, or a chance at damage reduction while not moving. Okay, Vanguards on power armor I think is just pointless. Power armor is so good, you do not need Vanguards. +1 intelligence, great if you're leveling, otherwise that's not useful at all. And that third star, I just don't tend to stand still, so for me that's not that useful, but overall this is not that great of a piece. Next up, we've got Executioner's Knuckles with limp damage and VATS critical charge. Okay, Executioner's, it's okay. I mean, it's an okay effect. I mean, Knuckles don't do a ton of well, actually, Knuckles can be okay, but yeah, Executioners is okay. Not really an effect I'm looking for in a melee weapon. I'd rather have vampires or aristocrats, something like that. Limp damage, I'd rather have swing speed, and VATS critical charge, that's fine. But overall, this is just not a combination of effects I want on this particular weapon. Next up, we've got a Nocturnal heavy metal chest piece with poison resistance and weapon weight reduction. Well, too bad about that first star. I'm not a fan of Nocturnal because it's only extra damage resist. I mean, if you're doing some sort of role play and you're only playing your character at night, you know, unfortunately, there's no way to manually set the time in this game. So if you only play at night, then you're waiting around a lot or you're server hopping. So not a fan of Nocturnal, but I do love poison resistance, and who doesn't like weapon weight reduction as well? So if that first star was something else, I would actually be a fan of this. Other than that, I'm not so much. Next up, we've got Exterminator's sturdy metal right leg with poison resist and underwater breathing. Okay, underwater breathing, I've talked about before. Not super useful in this particular game. Love poison resistance as a second star, and Exterminators could be good as a mix and match set where you're mixing different enemy damage reductions around. Could be okay for that, but overall, not that interesting of a piece. Next up, we've got Mutant Slayer's heavy combat armor left leg with cryo resist and chance to reduce damage while sprinting. Okay, so Mutant Slayers, that's a good effect if you're doing a mix and match set, and Super Mutants tend to be some of the more dangerous enemies in the game. Cryo resist, though, I don't think that's really useful at all. And damage reduction or chance at damage reduction while sprinting, well, that's sprinting though. So yeah, unless you're running away from a lot of fights, that's probably not going to be all that useful either. Next up, we've got bolstering. Bolstering Raider power left leg with extra radiation resistance and less damage taken while blocking. Bolstering, if you're playing low health, and obviously there's no unyielding power armor, so bolstering, I could actually make a case for that. It's going to give you extra resistance. However, it's power armor. You don't need extra resistance in power armor. You've got plenty. Even with Raider, you have plenty. Extra radiation resistance, again, power armor. Not only do you get good radiation resistance, but also reduces incoming radiation by 90%. So an extra 25 on power armor, I doubt you're going to notice that. And yeah, again, I'm not blocking. So this is overall a combination of effects that I really don't want. Next up, we've got Aristocrat's metal chest piece with, Hardy and Cavalier. What are those? Okay, Hardy is less explosion damage. Okay, so extra or less explosion damage is a good thing, and chance to reduce damage while sprinting. Again, unless I'm running away, that's really not going to do anything. Less explosion damage, that could be useful. And plus 20 energy resistance and damage resistance. You know, on something like this, because it is so lopsided on metal armor in favor of ballistic, so an extra 20, maybe not on ballistic, but an extra 20 on the energy side could actually be useful. So that could be okay, but overall this doesn't thrill me. Looks like we have enough for 10 more. Jeez, 10 more. We haven't got really not much of anything at all. Troubleshooter's Ultra Sight Torso with intelligence and brakes slower. Okay, Troubleshooter's good part of a mix and match set, plus 1 intelligence. Unless I'm leveling, I don't really care. And brakes slower. Power Armor brakes incredibly slowly, so that 3rd star is not going to be my 1st or 2nd or even 3rd choice. Next up, we've got a Nocturnal Heavy Metal Left Arm with plus 1 endurance and chance to reduce damage while not moving. Well, I don't tend to not move, so that 3rd star is not going to help. Plus 1 endurance, a little bit of extra health, but overall I'd rather have other stars in that 2nd slot. And Nocturnal only gives me a bonus part of the time, and I'm not interested in part-time effects like that, so I'm not going to keep this. Next up, we've got a Stalker's Double Barrel Shotgun with exploding bullets and reload speed. Well, I do like faster reload speed on a double barrel shotgun. Bullets exploding is always fun. Stalkers, I don't love Stalkers. If it was predictable, maybe, but it just isn't a very predictable effect when it's working, when it's not. So overall, I'm just not interested. Next up, we've got Anti-Armor Ski Sword with power attack damage and weapon breaks slower. Anti-armor is okay, except, you know, if you're playing melee, you're probably using Incisor, and that's already giving you 75%. So if you do 50% and it is multiplicative, it's not gonna give you 50% more. It's gonna give you like 12.5. I think 12.5% is what I have that right. I think it's another 12.5%. So it's a little bit of extra damage, not a ton. Power attack damage. If you're playing that way, Ski Sword's actually a pretty good weapon. I go for swing speed, but for power attack damage, this could actually be pretty good. Weapon breaks slower. I'd rather have other effects, but it's not terrible. Next up, we've got a Medic Scatling Laser with limb damage and damage resist while reloading. Okay, Medics on a gun like this is kind of silly. You're probably not using it in VATS, which means Medics does nothing. Limb damage, that could actually be good. Target legs, target arms, cripple enemies. That could be a good thing, especially since this doesn't have like a high per shot damage. So you're gonna shoot a lot of shots, so a lot of chances to cripple. You're probably wearing power armor, so that plus 250 damage resist while reloading, probably not gonna be noticeable. Looks like we have 5 more to go. Zealot Spear with extra power attack damage and VATS critical charge. Well, Zealots, it's enemy specific and it's not swing speed, so we're just moving on. Next up, we've got Ghoul Slayer's Heavy Combat Armor Chest Piece. Hunger and Thirst grow slower and less damage taken while blocking. Okay, well, I do like heavy combat. I think that's really good armor. Unfortunately, we don't really need extra damage from ghouls. Yes, mix and match is great, but ghouls just don't do all that much. Hunger and Thirst, lots of food, and I don't ever block. So overall, this is, I like the heavy combat part, but the rest of it, not so much. Next up, we've got Instigating Pole Hook with melee, let's see, plus 50% melee damage reflection while blocking and reduced AP cost. Well, I like reduced AP cost because I do tend to use these in VATS a lot. Instigating, this actually is a two-handed weapon, and once you have it modded, it can hit pretty hard. So with Instigating, you're gonna do a lot of one-shots on people, or enemies rather. So that could be a good effect. But I don't ever block, so that middle star is kind of useless. So if this had swing speed or power attack damage, it could actually be kind of interesting to play with. But as it is now, it's just a throwaway. Next up, we've got a Suppressor Sledgehammer with power attack damage and less damage taken while blocking. I don't block, so I don't care. Power attack damage, this could hit pretty hard, so power attack damage could be good, but I'd rather have swing speed, and I think Suppressors is a waste. Mercifully, we have come to the end. This is the last pick. I'm not expecting anything based on how it's all gone, so let's just get it over with. Aristocrat, sturdy robot right leg with +1 strength and reduced food and drink weight. So +1 strength, if you're a melee character, that's good. Other than that, I don't really want that. I know it adds carry weight and all that, but I'd rather have something like AP regen or poison resist. Reduced food, drink, and chem weight has the potential to remove, to free up perk spots, so that could be a good effect, but overall, probably this isn't interesting to me. Well, we got a little over 50 items, and I don't think I'm gonna keep any of them. I think they're all gonna go, well, into the script machine. I'll move them to my other characters and put them in the script machine and turn them into something else. So yeah, nothing jumped out, even remotely interesting that I looked through all the stuff and there's just nothing. So hopefully at least you found this entertaining. If you did, please hit one of the buttons down below, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.